Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. Today is garden tour week 13 and it is the second week of garden tour / harvest. Today I'm going to show you some new things that have popped up in the garden that are very exciting, as well as harvest some more of my fall crops. So first thing we're doing today is we're harvesting a lot more of these carrots. Last week I harvested a good bit of them and a lot of them weren't quite ready yet, but I can't leave them in the ground too much longer. Plus I have another crop that I really want to get started. So at this point everything that's not flowering is coming out. Just pulled out this little bunch. Lots of teeny ones. Not many of them got that big. Well, I think I found my biggest Auxhart carrot. Look at that chonker. So I've got a couple of carrots here, Black Nebula, that are going to require some extra excavation. If you remember last week, I was having an extra hard time pulling these, and I'm not sure why. They must have put out a lot of extra little side roots or something. And this is the massive pile of carrots that I got. A lot of them are small, but they're still like a very edible size. Well, as far as excavating carrots go, I got one and half of another. Oh well. So here's what we're looking at now. There are 4 blooming ones, which, by the way, look at how beautiful that is. I love these carrot blossoms. Look at that. They're so pretty. Anyways, so most of this bed is dug out. Peas I'll dug out pretty soon. They have a few pods on them. I'm hoping they'll dry and I'll be able to save the seeds. But other than that, these are done. Like, it is too hot for them. They're not going to make any more peas for me. You can see how crispy they are just from being out in the heat. Alright, so let's take a look at everything else. We've got the everything bed. Look at those tomatoes just crawling on up. So a lot of my tomatoes are starting to set fruit, and one of the most interesting fruits is this one. This is a fasciated tomato or blossom, which just means that a bunch of blossoms fused together and then they got pollinated. And now I have this monster tomato growing. This one also looks a little fasciated. You can see kind of a more normal looking one over here. But yeah, normally you see this with heirlooms and not so much with the hybrid types that you buy at the store. But it can still happen. It's just more common with the heirloom varieties. Here's a view we don't see very often of the garden from the back. All this stuff in the front here, you can see, is growing nice and tall. The stuff further back is taking its time. And, you know, a lot of stuff is still competing with this radish jungle that I've got going on here. Believe it or not, I am continuing to trim it back. But I've got all of these pods on it. I've eaten a lot of them. And Now I'm just waiting for some of the more mature ones to dry up so that I can save the seeds from them and then get them out of the way of the rest of my plants. And before we circle back around to the front of the bed, I just wanted to show you a quick update on this cover crops that I planted. You can see some of the things I planted are sprouting, like that's a little basil there. This is one of the beans that I planted. I saw some marigolds coming up, among other things. There's a lot of other random weeds that were already here / growing, but that's okay because the point of this is just to have stuff growing so that the rain doesn't wash all of this dirt right into my garden. So there are a few other cool things to look at in the garden around here. You can take a look at my biggest tomato. That is an Amish paste tomato, and it will probably start ripening here soon. It's still very green. And underneath here, if you can see back there, there's a Buena Mulata pepper curling up right under there. It's nice and purple. I was actually thinking about how I was going to tell whether or not it was ripe because it starts out purple, and turns out they're going to turn like brown and then red as they ripen, so that's really cool. If you look at the tomatoes from down here, they look absolutely massive. Look at it, it keeps going. There's the top. So right in here, in between the radish jungle, I have more carrots that I'm gonna wait a couple more days to pull, just simply because I don't need them yet. And these were planted a little bit later than the other ones anyway. Another exciting thing though is my single seed challenge has set its second tomato, and hopefully this one doesn't get eaten up immediately like the first one did. He's doing pretty well considering how crowded he is with all the radishes. I keep trying to cut them back so he has his space, but it's still not really ideal. So I'm like pretty proud of this plant for continuing to keep going in spite of the jungle around it. And if we move over here, you'll see the 2 turnips that I allowed to set flowers. They're making these beautiful yellow flowers. I'll get some seeds from those, and the rest of the turnips are entirely gone now. So there's a lot more room in there. And you can see this plant is like trying to recover from the turnips that were crowding him out before. I've still got my kale here. Haven't pulled from it in a while, so it's starting to get a little bigger, and it's probably not going to be as sweet now that it's hot. But it hasn't started bolting yet, so that's interesting, especially considering we've had like 90-degree days for about the past week and a half. Alright, so we are coming up on the bean trellis. You can see that I've got stuff climbing on both sides now, and it is starting to look really pretty. I'm so excited for this to start really producing beans, especially the noodle beans that I planted. You can see I have some of my cave beans coming in. I tried eating 1 or 2 of these steamed like you would a normal green bean, but they were very stringy. So I think these are gonna be shelling beans only. I've got my Malabar spinach here. It's finally starting to look like it's vining upwards. And you can see at the top of this one, it's starting to make little flowers. I thought that this would vine up a lot more aggressively than it has, or maybe it's just getting started. I've never grown it before, so we'll see how this goes. It might not need a trellis for a while yet. And here is the garlic bed, looking very much half dead. And that's a good sign. That means that we are ready to pull garlic. So this is actually the last time you'll see the garlic bed like this. I've been pulling 1 or 2 here and there to see if it's ready, and I think it's definitely about time, especially considering some of them are not just half dead, but completely dead. So we're gonna pull up all this garlic right now and see what we got going on underneath the soil there. Right, so this is the first of what I'm seeing. It's a little small, but I kind of expected that given that I planted hardneck garlic instead of softneck garlic. So this is the Moroccan Creole, I think. These are a little bit smaller. We're gonna go ahead and finish pulling those. So I did a little bit of an experiment here. Some places mention that you should knock garlic over like a week or two before you harvest it. And some places just like didn't mention that at all. So I thought I'd do it with some of them and see what happened, because the ones that said that you should knock it over claimed that doing so would increase the bulb size. And I kind of think that that's what happened. If you look, these are the ones that I left straight up and down, and these are the ones that I knocked over. And they're not like a lot bigger, but there's like definitely an appreciable size difference there. So, based on my own personal experiment, I'm gonna have to say I do recommend the whole knocking over of your garlic thing. I knocked this over, I think 2 weeks ago, but I think the trick is to bend it without breaking it. Some of them I was going to knock over and I didn't, because it felt like I was just gonna snap the whole thing off. And I'm not sure that that would work out as well. You can see this one was already like really bendy here in the neck, which might also be another indicator of whether or not your garlic is ready to harvest. Again, this is my first year doing the whole garlic thing, so I don't really know. I can just tell you guys what I'm experiencing. But I do see like a very appreciable difference in the size of these. So I think going forward, I'm going to do this, or at least I'm going to do a little more research, because next year I'm probably going to plant soft neck instead of hard neck. Everything I planted was hard neck this year. So the knocking over seems to work with the hard neck garlic. So there are a few disappointments as well. First of all, there's this onion that I found that very tiny. I guess I must have left it there from when I transplanted. There's this garlic that obviously didn't split at all, and I almost couldn't get it out of the ground because the top fell off. There's this one, similar state there. And we've got these teeny little things, but some of the other ones are actually like store-sized heads of garlic. So there's a little something to be proud of there. Let's go ahead and grab the rest. Alright, well that was the last garlic, but there's something else I wanted to show you guys on this. So if you look real closely, you can see that there's this like white fuzz on it mixed in with the dirt there. And basically that is a really, really good sign that I have like a healthy fungal population in the soil. And the healthy funguses are indicative of a healthy microbiome in general, which means that that bed is doing really great nutrient-wise and life-wise. So just something else to look out for is that really nice fuzzy white stuff on the roots around where your beds are, because that'll tell you whether or not you've got that healthy soil microbiome or not. So I really enjoyed the chat that we had last week, and my phone definitely needs a break from the sun. So I'm gonna sit here and talk with you guys again and pull the greens off my carrots. In case you missed last week's video, it's important to pull the greens off of your carrots pretty much ASAP, because as your carrots are growing, right, this carrot is the root and the plant is pulling nutrients from the root up into the rest of the plant. And so when you pick it, it's still trying to pull nutrients out of the root, and we want all the nutrients to stay put in the root where they are. So that's why we pull the greens off, so that they can't suck all of the nutrients back out of our beautiful carrots. Something else somebody told me is these little baby carrots. Somebody told me that these are like served in restaurants as kind of like a delicacy, I think is what they said. So that's pretty cool. Yet another reason to keep them. I am personally keeping mine to make some vegetable stock, which I was planning on showing you guys this week, but then I got too busy. This is my first week back at work at my barista job at Starbucks, and that just like, it takes so much energy out of you, like not just to be on your feet all day, but then to deal with the customers. Anybody who's worked in customer service before knows what I'm talking about. But you know, there's some entitled people that come through and, you know, don't think to treat you like an actual human. They treat you like a walking, talking coffee machine. Before I go any further, I should actually show you guys this massive pile of carrots that I have. Hold on. Look at that. I know I showed y'all earlier, but I think it was a little sunny. But just like, look at that. It's so many carrots. Can you imagine if they were all like huge carrots? What would I do with all of these carrots? So thankfully, I'm not trying to eat all of these carrots myself. I've been feeding them to my friends. So until like this year, I didn't like carrots much. I would eat them raw, like the little baby carrots, and I liked that well enough. But cooked carrots were like a big no for most of my life. When I was like a little bit older, I would eat them stewed, like in beef stew, which my dad makes, which is really good. But eating just cooked carrots on their own was really bleh. Until I learned that if you butter and salt them after boiling, oh my god. I guess really the secret is that if you butter and salt anything, it tastes a lot better. But yeah, now I readily eat cooked carrots. We cooked some of these actually the last harvest. And really interestingly, the pigmentation in the purple ones, it was very, very strong. It was so strong that we took the hot water from boiling these carrots and poured it into the sink and like plugged it up so that we could really see the color against the whiteness of the sink. I have a picture of it. Maybe I'll put it up here for you. But it was so dark purple. And we put like one of the trash like wash rags, like, you know, the ratty ones that you use for all the gross stuff. We put one of those in it to see if it would dye it purple. And it kind of did. It was, you know, not like turning it royal purple or anything, but it definitely gave it a solid purple tint. Which makes me think that like natural clothing dyes from black nebula carrots, like that was probably a thing way back when. If the black nebula carrots were around, I don't know. But if they were, it could be. So the last time that I was chatting here with you guys, I asked you to tell me something about yourself in the comments, and if you're new and you haven't done that yet, you should totally do that, because the whole point of my channel is to help you guys. That's it. I mean, you know, a little bit of me like really gets excited about sharing my garden with all of you who are so excited to share my garden, so there's that. But honestly, I just really like helping people. When some of my friends come to me with gardening questions, I'm like, yes. Let me tell you all the things for you to have a successful garden. You know, I'm still pretty new at this myself, but I feel like that puts me in a good place to teach you guys. Because, you know, I'm not like 10 years in and forgetting how hard I thought it was to plant a carrot. I still think it's hard to plant carrots. I think probably the germination that I got on these things is pretty pitiful if you look at the number of seeds that I planted. And this is still a lot of carrots, not complaining, but in the future I could do a little better. But yeah, so since I'm like pretty new at this myself, I think that it puts me in a position to give you guys, as also new gardeners, the kind of advice that you actually really need. Stuff that's not going to be too overwhelming, stuff that's immediately relevant to you, and stuff that maybe a lot of more experienced gardeners just take for granted as common knowledge. So I hope that you guys are finding that sort of stuff helpful. And some of you who did reply to me in the comments, actually, thank you. it's so nice to get to know you guys. You guys continue to surprise me by being just some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I really appreciate your support. You know, some of you are container gardening, some of you are just now starting out like with your first garden in a house, and that's really exciting. But it seems like, you know, none of you who are coming to me are like experienced gardeners, and I mean, that's good in my opinion, because you guys are the ones that I'm trying to help. If you have been gardening for 10 years, you probably won't find my channel very helpful. Maybe you'll find it inspirational, because, you know, I try to have a beautiful garden and a beautiful cat in my garden. But really, you guys who are just now starting out, who've been container gardening in apartments, and you either are just now or are dreaming of moving into a house and starting your own backyard garden, like, I think you guys are the ones that I can help the most, because that's basically my story. I've lived in apartments for a while now because I was a college student. I was moving around a lot. I had a few containers on like a balcony, and I grew some herbs that were, they grew fine, but you know, I had like this much herbs and nothing to do with them. And so now that I'm in this apartment, which I'm lucky enough to have the yard and the raised beds that were already here when I got here, now that I have that, like, you know, that's step 2 of the dream. I'm learning small scale how to container garden and also garden in raised beds. And it's giving me an opportunity to really experiment with a lot of like new techniques and with a little bit larger scale food production. Given the size of the raised bed back there with the tomatoes, I'm really hoping that I can actually can some tomato sauce this year. I think that would be really cool. Other things I'm looking forward to are making salsa pretty much entirely from my garden. I've got the garlic here. I've got the onions that I grew. Some of them were back here actually. Like, the biggest ones are about this size. This is another thing that I don't really know what I was doing. I just kind of threw some onion seeds in the ground, and this is what I got. Hopefully this next year I'll be able to do a little bit better job. But I've got the onions for that. I'm growing the serrano peppers that I want to put in my salsa. What else am I growing? I had cilantro, but I learned that that is not a summer weather crop. There's no way I can grow that through the summer here in South Carolina. So probably next year I'll have to plan a little further ahead, grow some over the winter, and then maybe I'll do the thing where you like freeze it in little ice cubes of oil or something like that, so that I'll have something from the garden to throw into salsa. What else goes in that salsa? I got that recipe for salsa actually that I love from a friend of mine who grew up in Mexico, and so it's like, it's got a couple of little tricks in it that you don't really see in other salsa recipes, and I think they make all the difference. But I'll save those for the video where I'm actually making the salsa for you guys. I really love it. I don't think I'll ever make salsa from another recipe again, at least not on a large scale. Of course I want to try stuff, but like, this salsa recipe is the bomb. I think it's so good. Let's see, what else? I guess that's everything from the garden that would go in it. The peppers and the tomatoes and the onions and the garlic and the cilantro. So since I've got all these carrots now, tell me what you do with carrots. Yeah, I'm gonna need some recipes. Like, I could theoretically like boil all of these and eat them with butter and salt and like share them among the people that I know, but I'd like to try something new. I don't do that very often. So let me know what your favorite thing to do with carrots is, and I will try that. This is really starting to wear on my hands, like right here where I pinch it to pull it off. I'm starting to feel it. Carrot, 999. Ugh, so many carrots. Not complaining, again. not really complaining. I mean, I got carrots. I'm excited, even though a lot of them are like this sized. I call that a win. Maybe some more experienced gardeners would look at this harvest and be really disappointed in themselves. But I mean, I think the fact that I got all these carrots to grow at all is pretty great, considering I literally don't know what I'm doing when it comes to growing carrots. Look at this one. This is like the biggest carrot, I think. Well, the biggest Auxhart carrot that I pulled from that whole patch. And if you look in the corner, doesn't that look like my logo? Yeah, that's what that is. So nice, right? They're supposed to be like short and fat like this. And I think it could get even a little bit bigger. But this is probably about the size that I was hoping that all of them would be. But alas, only a few lived up to their full potential. Alright, bucket full of carrots. This is probably a little bit more volume-wise than I got last week. Definitely a lot more individual carrots though. Alright, and before we end our porch chat, I wanted to talk about curing garlic. So with garlic, I just pulled all of this out from the ground. And again, this is my first year doing this, but from what I understand, basically you want to just kind of brush the dirt off of it nice and gently, and then lay it somewhere that's outside so it's like hot and dry. Well, I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be exactly hot, but like definitely warm enough to dry things out, and out of the sun. And you'll just want to wait for this outside layer to start to get real papery, just like the garlic that you buy at the supermarket. At which point you can then snip off the roots, snip off the top, and store it however you would normally store your garlic. If you had soft neck garlic, some people like to braid that garlic, but since this is hard neck, let me show you like a better example. Like some of these, like this one, this is just like really stiff. Like I can't really bend this without it feeling like I'm about to snap it, which is why people don't normally braid the hard neck garlic. And hard neck, all that means, if you don't know, is that like if you've ever looked at garlic and you've seen like sometimes the cloves just meet all together, and that's a soft neck, but sometimes there's this like stick in the middle, or a stalk I guess is what it really is, in between all of the garlic cloves, and that is a hard neck garlic. And the reason that I was telling y'all earlier that maybe I have a lot of small ones because I planted hard neck is because garlic, what it needs is this period of being really cold before it is like really activated. And I planted my garlic in October, so technically it overwintered. But here in South Carolina, I think I counted a total of like 4 or 5 days where the nights were like significantly below freezing. And that is not nearly enough time for your garlic. I'm like so freaking surprised that I got anything resembling like a normal sized head of garlic out of this, because like it literally just wasn't cold enough from all the sources I could find. Now I did plant a few different varieties. So this was a Moroccan Creole garlic that got really big, and the ones that didn't really get that big, most of those were like an Amish something variety of garlic. And then like some of the ones that made more medium-sized cloves were something called Inchelium Red, I think. I'll put it on the screen for you. But yeah, basically, sometimes people who want to grow hardneck in the South, they will refrigerate their garlic cloves for something like 6 weeks before they go out and plant them. And I obviously didn't do that. But from what I've read, now that I know, is soft neck garlics do a whole lot better in the warmer winters of the South, because they barely need any time at all to be cold before they'll split real nicely and make you good cloves of garlic. So I'm gonna go spread these out, and then it looks like it's about time for us to finish our garden tour. Here's all of that garlic. You can see most of the cloves are just pretty small, but I mean, the few that I did get that were big were like pretty good sized heads of garlic, so I'm pretty happy with all of this. Alright, Draco, you gotta let me out. Come on. There we go. So, out here in the garden, ooh, that is right, okay. So I've pulled more potatoes from last week, but I still have a few more to pull. I'm kind of just pulling them as I need them at this point. We've got tomatoes in containers doing pretty alright here. They're not growing as fast as the ones in the raised bed. We've got my ginger plant right there. Basil's looking good. If we come over here to the tomatillos, I still only have 2 noticeable fruits set on these guys, so that's a little disappointing. So if we move on next to the tomatillos, I've got my micro dwarf tomatoes, which are looking great, putting on more fruit. None of it has ripened yet though, although the minute one does, I will try one on video for you guys, because I've actually never in my life eaten a raw homegrown tomato before. Can you believe it? Oh no. Yeah. Never eaten one. But this year I will. Last year I didn't even think to when I had all those cherry tomatoes from the neighbors. Anyways, here's all the peppers. You can see this one I'm pretty excited about. He is putting on some fruits. Little baby cayennes is what this is supposed to be. And some of the other ones are trying. I haven't seen any real appreciable fruits on any of the others, but they're all looking really quite good. And let me just show you this jigsaw pepper. It is growing in with some of the most beautiful white and green variegated leaves. Over in the squash corner, you can see the pumpkin is just taking over. I don't know, I think he was like over here last week, and all of this has grown, not to mention all of the extra little tendrils that are coming out. Here's one, that's all the pumpkin. I've trained the cucumbers up the trellis a little bit. They're starting to take off as well. Pretty excited about that. Also, if you follow the Instagram, you might have seen some of these dragon tongue beans I picked. Those things are just gorgeous with the little purple stripes on them. Here's another one. About ready to pick some more of these. Ooh, look at this guy. Yeah, so I steamed these like normal green beans, and they were really, really silky. Like normal green beans are kind of a little crunchy, but these were just like melt in your mouth silky after I steamed them. So in here I have my squash plants. The bed that they're going in is now empty. So this week these will get planted out. I have spaghetti squash and pumpkins ready to go here, and I hope that they do well out there. Alrighty, well that was garden tour week 13, harvest week 2. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing everything that was in the garden, and I'll see you again very soon. Until then, happy gardening.